Hello everyone and welcome to the second part of the injuries in esports seminar recap. So this is where we got left last time. I give you guys a second to pause if you want to see what we're going to do next, and we're moving on. So in the physiotherapy, most of the stuff pretty basic, you can read it there. Myofascial release is specific type of massage, not too relevant for esports in most cases since it usually deals a lot with like the actual muscle and stuff. But yeah, just giving you guys a little bit explanation what it is. Yeah, all right. There's not too much about it, so let's move on. Splinting. You remember in the first video that we talked about first the signs and symptoms, so the first three things there, and how you wake up in a night because people naturally have this wrist flexion going on when they sleep. At least most people. Um, We also talked about splints and how they aren't good compared to taping, but night splinting is a little bit different because you don't wear it when you actually play. So night splinting is perfectly okay to uh, give a player who is you hopefully using the other methods as well to treat and prevent his possible problem there. But if he has trouble sleeping because of it, he can use night splinting to prevent the natural wrist flexion, which should give him a pretty good on this. What is it? Well, whatever. Give him a good night's sleep. All right. Non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs, so called NSAIDs. There's three most common examples there. You probably find at least one of them from your house, and you should find one of them from every gaming house because of the quite clear relevance here. So those can be used to um, treat the early symptoms or just as a combination with other treatment methods to treat the bigger problem. So that's about it. Um, Now steroids. This is a little bit more aggressive and invasive method. Um, Something to remember is that it only momentarily helps. It is not a permanent fix. It's basically like, so you can see there's a picture of cortisone injection. Cortisone is most used corticosteroid for these things. And what it does is it's basically, you can think of it as it takes the inflammation away. This is a really simplified way to explain it, but it takes inflammation away in a sense. And it does not, however, in any way prevent it coming back. Um, how this can be used in a smart way is if player has the uh, really bad like problem, for example, with a carpal tunnel syndrome, they can use this as a kickstarter for the treatment. So they take the inflammation away, but still do all the other stuff, uh, and that might make him heal a little bit faster, get back into shape a little bit faster. Also, theoretically, this could be used as, let's say, toys were already in. Actually, let's not use toys because I don't know what happened there. But let's say if you would have a faker would have a really bad tendinitis case, and that there would be the last game of the worlds, and you really want him to play, you can give him injection, but and that would allow him to play, but it definitely would not do good in the long run. So it can use as a momentarily fix as well. Uh, but that is not something I would really recommend to do. Anyways, let's move on. So firstly, mm, actually, yeah, I'll warn you guys in a second, but basically, surgery is usually recommended when you have chronic numbness or muscle weakness, so the last two symptoms really, um, or in the case where the pain is not controllable with other methods. You can see the idea there between the surgery. So they basically cut the transverse carpal ligament open to release the tension, release the compression in the median nerve. And now, if you are eating at the moment or somehow have a trouble with graphic pictures, please turn away from the screen from the moment. I will tell you when you can watch again. But I will show you a picture of the actual surgery, how it looks. So here is a picture of an actual surgery. So that is the more invasive way. Nowadays, what they also do is endoscopic surgery, where it's basically just the one hole where they are able to like put stuff in, so they don't have to do that big of a cut. They don't have to cut open the whole wrist there. Anyways, let's move on. Moment. All right. So now you can look if you didn't want to see the picture. Picture is gone. Recover from the surgery. So this would be obviously, if you have a player who would go to a surgery, would want to know, okay, like what is the likeliness of it succeeding? When can the player play again? Things like that. You can see all of those here. The 90% to 50%, what you can see there is in the 90% of the cases it helps, but only in the 50% of the cases it helps enough that like it helps like enough that the patients are satisfied. So like patient might not be satisfied if it relieves numbness but still leaves the pain, for example, or something like that. You can imagine like it usually helps at least somewhat, but sometimes in the 50% of the cases it helps enough that people feel the surgery was worth it in a sense. Now the problems there, you can see immediately complications with trigger finger. The recovery is 4 to 6 week rest after surgery. So you're straight on saying, okay, 1 month and a half to rest. And after that, it still would be like at least a month process of like physiotherapy and, doing some basic practices, whatever esport it is that you are player of. It would be at least month that, maybe 2. So you would be looking at like maybe 3 months before the player is actually like in the shape to play in a roster. So that is something to keep in mind. Obviously followed by physiotherapy, avoid use of splints. Just trust me on that one. Don't go too much in detail on it. And then Bjergsen's case. There's actually a picture missing here, I feel. There we get it. So Bjergsen's case. As I mentioned in the first video, if you follow a North American LCS, you have seen, even if you don't know it, a player wearing kinesio tape. You can see one in this picture, Bjergsen, wearing kinesio tape. So that is about that, and we're gonna look what happened to Bjergsen around the time of MSI, I think, right? And this is a quite good example. There's always an improvement to be done, but this is the one thing where I feel, at least from what I know, DSM handled it quite well. But obviously I don't have the inside knowledge on any of these cases, so maybe there was something that I didn't notice, but what I understood, it was handled quite well. It was dealt with the right things. Anyways, so what we're gonna use, we don't have records of player injuries, reported injuries, at least public ones that I would know of. Twitter, that is where you find all of the important things going on in a pro's life, recorded by word to word. Alright, so I did a little bit of Twitter research. I found this tweet as being the first one of series of tweets you will see later on. So what we see here is, okay, feeling some strange pain on the back side of my left hand. It's been lingering, blah blah blah. my question here would be, can this injury, can this problem that Bjergsen is describing, given what we learned about the carpal tunnel syndrome, can this be a carpal tunnel syndrome? I give you guys a moment to think about it. Feel free to make your guess. Maybe why it would be, why it wouldn't. Which one ever you choose. Here is like the last kind of explanation, last kind of tip, which one it is. I mean, if you look at what he's saying and then you look this part, you should be able to figure out it a little bit. There are two really major tips here that should give it away. And the answer is no, it's not a carpal tunnel syndrome. Let me backtrack a little bit. So first we say it's been lingering for strange pain that's been lingering for a week or two. Pain that we see in carpal tunnel syndrome tends to be sharp and piercing. People rarely would describe that kind of pain as strange or lingering in any sense. Also, what you can see here is that backside of my left hand. Here are sensations that different nerves provide for the hand. Backside of the left hand. If you actually look this picture first, look the backside of his hand. If you feel pain in that blue area, and it would feel in the front side as well, would you call that a backside of your left hand? It's like in the backside it would be a couple of fingers maybe. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't really do that. So what we can see from the backside, if it's gonna be nerve related, it would be either ulnar or radial nerve that would be dealt with there. As you can see how they provide their innervation there. My guess would be radial because it's a little bit larger proportion of the hand, as well as it's not affecting the front side really at all, or at least not that much. So that is, if you have a pain in your radial nerve distribution, you would probably describe it as a backside of your hand. However, the important point here is that it does not matter, and the reason for that is that treatment is pretty much all the same. So what we're gonna look here is the treatment stage 1 first. And what you can see there, you can tweet. So he started taking some anti-inflammatories, and you will see in a later tweet that he also did use basic methods, so breaks, stretching, exercises, and such. I assume he did not mention it in this tweet, but he did use them. So that is good one. Taking anti-inflammatories in their cells would not be enough, or would not be really good way to deal with an injury. So here we see the treatment stage 2. So you see that he had done the taping here. He took taping as a new method. The exercises, obviously, as I mentioned earlier as well, like he probably started doing them at the same time of taking the anti-inflammatories. And now, as he mentions that he has managed to reduce the pain to zero pretty much. What we expect him to do then is probably stop taking drugs, possibly stop using the tape, and keep managing with the basic methods. So doing that like gradually, as the pain allows him. And then what you do after that is you move towards the prevention then, and you make sure that you have all the preventive mechanisms that we gone through earlier in place to prevent anything like this happening again. So yes. So that was Bjergsen's case. Pretty self-explanatory. Nothing really fancy there, but that was a good example of, you know, this is how you should deal if a player has a injury. That was dealt pretty well. We're gonna take a look on some other injuries. We had two big spotlights there. Well, the carpal tunnel syndrome being really big spotlight. And now we're just gonna go into these things, look a bit of other injuries. Won't be as long, but basically just show you what kind of stuff there is. So carpal tunnel syndrome is not only median nerve related issue. You can see examples there. And in the treatments, what we are looking for is, as we talked about earlier in the fracture case, it's the nutrition. You can that's pretty much what you can do to it. Other than that, it's just waiting it to heal. So we can't really enhance the speed of it too much. In the laceration case, now we already talked about the structural damage with flexor tendons, or causing the either with tendons or just causing the narrowing of the carpal tunnel. Now, problem if you have laceration that hits your nerve is that is going to be so much worse than what you would have if you have structural damage in tendons or bones or anything like that. The nerve would cause a really big problem. So, you know, that is just something. That's why you can see time plus hope there, because if you have something that laceration for some reason that manages to cut your nerve or somehow cause structural damage to it, that would in many of the cases it would not be treatable in a sense. You would lose some effect for good. It wouldn't come back. So that's about it. Yeah, you can see the examples there. The thing is, we went through the CTS specific stuff, but most of those guidelines are same for all compressions, and even to some tendinitis and such. So yeah, tendinopathies then. The main thing we want to focus on here is that there's two different types. So there is you can see the structural damage of the tendon, which is not as bad as if it would be a nerve, and then the inflammation of a tendon. And they are called with different names. So if you hear tendinitis, that means inflammation of the tendon, which is much more common. So high divers being examples of these kind of things. You can see the treatments listed there. Pretty much similar stuff that we already found in the carpal tunnel. And then you can see the examples listed there. So now you probably understand already why don't we go in depth on every single injury that is possible. Then arthritis, probably another common name that you have heard. How arthritis is different from tendinitis is, in tendinitis here we see it's an inflammation of a tendon, whereas in the arthritis it's inflammation of a joint. So that's the main difference there. The treatments, pretty familiar probably from what we've gone through. There's a couple of special flavors there. You can see in physiotherapy they can use the electrical treatment if it's arthritis. So yeah, and if you didn't get it already, well, we don't go individually because there's over 100 different types of arthritis. One that I have picked out though is osteoarthritis, since that is most common, as well as it has mechanical stress, just like the carpal tunnel has, as a risk factor for it. So this is something that, you know, every esport player would be in would have this risk factor box checked basically. Mechanical stress. Yeah, every esport player probably has that. And for osteoarthritis specifically, carpal tunnel syndrome type of treatment. So similar things we went through. Obviously, a little bit different stretches, so on, so on, so on. But the basic ideas would be the same. The topics would be the same. Then we have bones. We already talked about them quite a lot. So what I would like to pick from this is that firstly you can see the characteristics of bone injury here, but what I would like to pay attention to is that the complications part there. So if player has a bone injury, obviously every injury should be dealt with like a great care and great detail, but especially in the case of bone injury, you have to make sure it's dealt the right way, because the complications can be pretty serious if the bone injury is not healing properly. So, that is just something to remember. Then focal dystonia. Now, this is something that you probably haven't heard before. There is no cases yet in esports that would have had a focal dystonia. However, this is what we might see in the future. It is completely possible. One of the reasons is that because, as you can see, the current people who has a focal dystonia, where that seems to occur, is people who rely a lot on motor skills, so such as musicians, especially musicians. There is a lot of musicians who had this issue, a lot of famous ones as well. And basically, you have to remember that in many ways, in terms of like physiological functions that we use, that we rely on, the league players or any esport players are really close to musicians. We're like cousins of them in a physiological functions that we use to do our selected thing, being either it being playing game for a living or playing an instrument for a living. So as we see something happening in musicians often, then, and especially because of that rely on a lot of motor skills, then that is something we can expect that pro players would be in the risk group for that one. It's treated with Botox injections, sensory-motor retraining, and muscle balance. But basically, on the basis that I looked up on it, it is not something that would be easy to manage. So if a player would encounter this type of thing, there is a good chance that more or less their career would be over at that point. So I'm giving you guys a second to pause again if you want. This is what we're gonna look now. We're getting close to the end, so not much left, but this is what we're gonna look now. And we start by coach perspective. So now if you are a coach or planning to be a coach or anything of that sort in esports, pay attention here. So this is from about what coach can do in the prevention part. Firstly, assessing a point of view of like pro teams, ergonomy is a one-time thing, so don't be lazy. Also, you can combine it with stretch, fitness, nutrition, even maybe. So let's say you are a coach, and most people who are coaches don't necessarily have a physiological knowledge a lot, and that shouldn't be required, obviously. But who would you go when you would need to make a fitness plan for players, or stretch? What stretches should they do? What kind of The nutrition is kind of an odd one out since that might be a different person, but stretch and fitness and ergonomy, physiotherapist would probably be your person to do that. I mean, if you want to go more in detail, you could have physiologists to do fitness part and so on, but um, physiotherapist would probably cover most of those things, and then if you find the right guy, you might have them to be able to do the nutrition part as well, or you could just find someone who deals more with nutrition. But all of those pretty much are more or less one-time thing to get the guidelines down, and then you're good to go. So don't be lazy on that because those are actually great part of prevention. Then what we have there is the planning breaks. So basically what I want to point out about that is that as a coach, you should probably plan breaks for your team. And now what you want to do is you need to communicate with manager. Um, because I assume like it might be a different, it actually is a different in the lot of pro teams, but I feel manager should be the person who would schedule the scrims. What you would need to let the manager know is this is type of break time that I want between every game. So you can have like if you scrim them for 5 games, I want 5 minutes of break between each game or something like that. And as a coach, you should also supervise the breaks. Make sure that no one, the players aren't playing Osu during the break, as we already gone through how that kind of defeats the purpose of having a break. Um, and just overall supervise. Maybe you want them to do stretches, maybe you want to go strategy through them with them. Supervise the breaks. All right. Also, this is more of a general point, but as a coach, you should act as a link towards other professionals. In these injury cases, in prevention of injury, whether it to be doctor, physiotherapist, physiologist, you should talk with them. You should basically, if you're getting, for example, the ergonomy, stretching stuff, and the fitness stuff from like physiotherapist, what you should do is now they might not know, they might not be familiar with esports, so you need to provide them with understanding of what characteristics do esport players have. Um, you know, you you have group of people who have long hours sitting in front of computer, long like in screen games maybe you have a like 6 hour block of scrims, so you have limited opportunities for or limited time at least for physical activity. What kind of nutrition the players are currently eating, all that kind of stuff. You need to be able to provide those people with the information so they can actually give you right suggestions. Um, and then you can see that, okay, so we already covered the stress, fitness, nutrition plans and supervise that players actually follow them. Uh, so yeah. Then let's say you're a coach and you have a player who has an injury. How do you deal with it? Um, this is really important topic firstly. Um, and the important here is to firstly you find out what kind of injury it is. So if it's like when you first time hear of the injury, if it's acute injury, obviously a doctor will be a person to deal with. With the chronic injuries, carpal tunnel syndrome and such that go over time basically, um, physiotherapist is probably the person you're gonna end up to. Uh, in Australia at least, I think there are physiotherapists already who have rights and have like a specialty to that they can like diagnose and prescribe. But I know in a lot of places it's still that you first have to go to the doctor and then you go to the physiotherapist. But if it's acute, it's mostly deal with doctor, and then when it has healed, then you go to physiotherapist. But if it's chronic, you're probably gonna straight up deal a lot with the physiotherapist. All right. Um, Also, about the keeping player informed. Now, imagine, put yourself in the situation of a player for a moment. Um, the important thing here is that player has a lot of questions when they get injured. Questions like, will I be released now? Will I be kicked from the team? Uh, when can I play again? Like what am I gonna do? Can I practice in any way now? Like how much will I be behind when I come back? Um, all these type of questions, and you should do your best to actually talk with the player, answer to most of them, do the best of your ability, and also in any case, if you have injured player, leaving them just like nothing to do is the worst possible thing you can do. Uh, Without going too much in depth, there is ways that especially a esport player can train when being injured. You can train without using your hands. It's gonna deal mostly with like game knowledge, decision making, all that stuff. But you should have the player, uh, include the player in the practice, include the player still in like scrims, like listen to communication. Um, you know, you want to keep the player involved and not just like put them on the side because they can't play at the moment. So that is important thing to remember, and then you obviously want to uh, make sure that you know how they are reacting to this situation because it can be quite challenging. So if necessary, you may want to uh, have a lot of teams already have sport psychologists which often deal with these kind of things. So in a need, go guide player to sport psychologist or psychologist to relieve the mental stress that the situation may cause to them. What we're gonna do now is then we're gonna look a little bit on the manager side. So maybe you're a manager in the esports team, and obviously in all of the cases, manager don't do all of these things, but in the prevention, screen scheduling should be something the manager I feel could be doing. Um, So if your manager talk with the coach, ask what requirements does he have, and then as a manager you can let the coach focus on the coaching, and you can schedule the sprints with the other teams by yourself. As long as you get like you ask, okay, well, how many games do you want? What kind of screen blocks? All that stuff, and when you get that, you can then make the scheduling stuff do make others life easier. Also other scheduling, so we're actually gonna talk more about those in the next slide. So let's not go too much in depth on those yet. The material purchases, so um, you don't need to know uh, why you are buying what you are buying, but what you should be able to do is, for example, let's say a coach, as I talked earlier, goes to physiotherapist and talks about their economy and gets guidelines from that physiotherapist about how he can improve the team's economy. You know, should we use different kind of mouses? Should we, do we have right chairs? All that stuff. Maybe a couple of players in the team were using too small mouses, as we talked earlier, like the strain thing. So then you get orders from him that okay, buy these mouses, and then you go to do it. Also, what you should be doing, we talked about NSAIDs, the drugs. So make sure that uh, house has those basic stuff, and then the nutrition again. You know, someone else is probably gonna do the nutrition plan, make sure it includes the stuff that I went through, but manager is a person who could possibly go and he has a shopping list and he can then buy that stuff, right? Um, then what happens when a player gets an injury and you're a manager of a team? Firstly, the coach is probably gonna be in the situation when that happens, or in the immediate situation, is gonna be busy with the player, hopefully at least. And so you probably want to, you get to hear, okay, this is like, who do we need? Maybe it's a doctor or whatever, and you can then do the appointments. So you can figure out the paper stuff for that. You can call, okay, when can they come, all that stuff. Uh, so that would be something that manager can provide at that point. When the situation calms down a little bit, uh, you probably, if it's an actual injury that takes some time to heal, you will need to bring out someone else, right? You will need to bring out sub, and that time is going to be very, very busy for a coach, because he's not only doing the injury plan, the training plan for the injured player, but he's also trying to suddenly get the team work with one completely new player. If your team didn't have like a subs before, who actually live in the house and train with the team, then he's gonna be dealing with guy who does not know the common communication of the team. He does not know the common strategies used. If you use any certain type of like plays or any like that kind of things, then he doesn't know those. So he's gonna be really busy dealing with completely new team chemistry and everything. And in that time, there is a chance that he do not have enough time to talk with the injured player as much as may be necessary. So what, as manager, you should be able to do is talk with a player, uh, even just listen to him, comfort, ensure, in the cases where you can. So now what you probably should do together, you can see the communication with coach and owner there, besides the thing that I will go in a second that is on the slide, but you should, with coach and owner, immediately discuss about what is the injury, how long it will take to recover, and are you gonna keep the player or not? That is a pretty big thing there. And as soon as you have decided, if you decide you are going to keep that player, you need to let that player know that, you know, because he takes 3 weeks to heal or whatever, a month to heal, that if you decided, don't worry, you're not losing your job, you know, we're gonna make sure you get back and, say then, but you're not gonna lose job solely because you're injured at the moment. So if you can give that insurance, that is great to give, and make sure you do that. But don't do it obviously if you're going to cut the player. Then also about the decides the rules and publicity. So basically nowadays we already found out that best way to learn about pro players' life is the tweets. So you want to make sure that when an injury happens, do you want it public? Do you want the first to have like a kind of official statement, all that stuff? So is there anything, do you need to set some guidelines or rules for players that, hey, do not tweet about this yet? Or, make sure to do that before they actually do, because if you wait a couple of hours, they probably have done it if no one has told them not to. So that's something to pay in mind there. And then, well, the material speed is just like, if you are not having something, so let's say you haven't doing your job, haven't making sure that there is some basic anti-inflammatories in the house, just get, don't think it like, okay, I'll get them tomorrow, but get everything that is needed as fast as possible. It's not only for because it would matter if you get it this evening or tomorrow morning in the case of injury, but it's more of that it shows to the player that you know the team is taking it seriously and making everything they can. So it's more of a like psychological thing than actually like you need to get it really fast, right? And that's about it. So you can see if you need to contact me, the best way is probably through Skype. Um, the LOL coaching link will be in the description. And what we will see soon is well, the soon is in quotes because I have no idea when these are actually gonna be reality. I would say before Christmas, yes. But other than that, it's really hard to say because the university is taking some time, so I do them whenever I have time. But there will be coming an esport nutrition seminar. Uh, that is the one that I'm working on at the moment, as well as there will be an article about mechanics training and mechanical improvement. But that is a little bit of thing that is more unsure where it will be published or if it will be public or whatever. But we'll see about that. Anyways, the esport nutrition seminar is something that should be coming before the Christmas at least. And actually, going back to this for a moment, the seminars page will be linked in description as well. So that's where the eSport Nutrition seminar will then appear when I will do it. And you can also right now, I think you should be able to find there's one really great seminar there that is hosted by Hazel. So that is something to pay attention to. But I think those are already booked full, I believe. So this might be a teasing a little bit because it's probably not open anymore. But anyways, couple of shout outs in the end to some great people. So Hazel, leader of Group Eden, as I mentioned. Some positive attitudes about him. Cyclone has really helped on a lot of other projects, as I mentioned. Well, this one as well, but a lot of analysis stuff, a lot of coaching tools that we have worked at. And then Sharon is great help whenever I need some help with stats, and also has some really great thoughts about coaching and a lot of experience from the from chess and from some other ways as well. So yeah, those are the shoutouts. And then since this is recap and not live, obviously there is no Q&A. But what you can do is you can throw questions to the comment section, and if there are really good questions or enough of them, I might do like a video going through them. So feel free to do that. I might answer some of them or make a video about it, but no guarantees. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you next time whenever that will be.